Yes, guys and girls, welcome to the newest episode of the Be More podcast. You guys are in for an absolute treat today. So we are joined by Danilo Cadete. So guys, you are in for a treat, mate. Over to you. Share with the guys a bit about your story and who you are.
Hi, Jack. Hi, guys. My name's Danilo Cadete, 32 years old, originally from Angola, but I was raised in the UK, sort of half of my life up north in Newcastle, but you won't hear that Geordie accent. And then half of my life, sort of the other half, down south in Surrey. As most kids, like yourself as well, Jack, I had a dream to become a professional footballer. Unfortunately, that goal wasn't achieved. However, I was fortunate to have played with some of the players I've played with or against, and even some of the sort of level I got to play at. Right now, I'm playing semi-pro football, so football is no longer the priority. Of course, age is a factor, a huge factor in there. But yeah, so just sort of like, focused most of my life on trying to become a professional, and then realized that I maybe needed to invest in other areas of my life, such as the education side of things. And that's what I decided to do. And in the end, I sort of ended up being a senior personal banker, which is where we are currently. So in terms of telling my story, I sort of like to call it a journey, because of course we're not done yet. So that's as far as we we've got so far, but there's still more to come, hopefully.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. So tell us, when did you move over to the UK? How old was you?
Yeah, so I was about seven, I believe, yeah, when I
And
moved over.
how was life for you before, like when you were growing up in Angola?
Oh, completely different, Jack. Completely different to the life in the UK. And it's one of those things that, you have no idea of, different lifestyles, different cultures into you experience different. And it was one of those things, when I was in Angola, being as young as I was, but obviously I was aware of things and how, the whole environment worked around me. And then when I moved here, I saw a huge difference. And of course, in terms of like, just sort of like culture wise, it was completely different. As you might already be aware, Africans tend to be more traditional based, sort of, in Europe or within the UK in general, it's a little bit more open-minded sort of thing. So a huge difference. And not to even speak on the fact that, the difference between the rich and the poor, and more like most places in Africa is huge. So, you could be walking down a five-star hotel, coming outside of it, and outside, you're kind of right into the ghetto straight away, and you could feel and see the differences. But like I said, until you experience something different or a different environment, you don't really realize how different, some parts of the world are and how people live. So yeah, huge difference.
How do you feel like those first 7 years of your life prepared you for your whole life, like the experiences you went through?
Wow, great question. I think, in fact, um, it helped me build my character in terms of, I would say, mental toughness. And I know it sounds a little bit crazy and insane to be 7 years old and already be thinking about mental toughness. But I guess the situation, which, I've experienced, and I'm sure many other people have experienced, not just in Africa, but in Europe or any side, any part of your life, any sort of experience. What, like they say, what doesn't kill you only make you stronger. So I think it's given me a different perspective on life, and certainly humbled me as well. Because like I said, going from Angola, which is a very beautiful country, to be honest. But like I said, the difference between the rich and the poor is huge. So you experience a bit of both, perhaps what we do here in the UK, and what we do, obviously, or what I did in Angola. But it certainly helped me have a different perspective or a way of looking at life. And I think that helped me build the character that I have built today. Certainly played a huge part in it.
Amazing, mate. So tell me, football obviously is a big part in your life. Was you out there balling all the time playing, or did it really start when you moved to the UK? Like by the point of 7, was you already like decent? Like to tell us.
Yeah, yeah. As far as I'm aware, and according to my parents, I've always played football from, I don't know, age of 2 or something like that. Because I remember, being 7 years old and kind of like people just going crazy, like this guy is super talented. He's gonna be the next guy, and all of this. I mean, to me, it was like I didn't really notice or kind of thought about what they were saying. I just wanted to go out there and play and enjoy. I would play by myself, with friends. When friends would leave, I would still be there playing. At times, I had to come, like I had to get dragged out, literally, or dragged into the house, should I say, by my parents because I was still out there playing football. So I think the passion and the love for football started really early.
I love it, mate. So
Got
let's go to now, and I will come back to that part of the story for sure.
Yeah,
I'm really interested about it. But
yeah,
now you run the Lit Show, which I was honored to come on and be a guest on. What
yeah.
what
Thank you.
inspires you to start that? Like, it's obviously your own podcast. Like, what made you want to start in the first place? And is it maybe something that was started when back you was little, is something that you want to now give back and inspire other people?
Yes, I think there's a bit of everything in there. It's a bit of both. I've always sort of, in terms of personality, I've always been an extrovert. So, I've been out there, as you've probably seen on my social media, on there. So I love to talk to people. I love to communicate. Perhaps that's also one of the positive sides of playing football, especially now at this age where we're not trying to be professional anymore, but the social side of things. So, but the podcast on the Lit Show actually came about as a joke. Now, it was during lockdown, so we were bored, as most of us were at times, and I decided, let me work out. I was buzzing, feeling, hyper. And I decided, let me jump on the live and just, just say whatever comes to mind. Obviously with banter intentions and stuff. And I started calling out some of my friends, etc. So long story short, I guess people were bored as well. So people paid attention. And I received, numerous of good feedbacks saying, "Oh my God, that was funny. Can you talk about my friend as well? He did that, or she did this, or this and that." So it kind of developed that way. As the days went by, I started doing more lives as a joke. And I was actually calling it Quarantine Radio, which I don't know if you're aware of the rapper. He's gone to jail now. What's his name? Tory Lanez. He was doing Quarantine Radio at the time. So I was kind of like mimicking him, going Quarantine Radio, but then talking about my actual friends, so they could relate. But then as the days went on, I sort of saw an opportunity and said, hold on a minute, maybe this could, if I took this serious, this could go somewhere. So the ideas kind of like started flowing. And I thought, do you know what? I'm a person that I like to talk. I like to hear people, a bit like yourself. I like to hear people's stories as well. But as it started off as an entertainment platform, I thought I'd keep it that way. However, thought after thought, putting thoughts together and plan, I said, you know what, why don't I just create a platform where it kind of delivers a bit of everything? So we're talking about entertainment, talent, sports, education, fitness and well-being, which obviously you joined us on as well. And kind of like merge everything, into one. And that's where really it kind of started developing, and now we are where we are.
Amazing. I love it. So let's go back to when you came to the UK.
Yeah.
Obviously, at this point, already baller. Did you start? Did you join a team straight away? And how did you find the culture shift from Angola to Newcastle?
Yeah.
Like at home straight away, or did it take you some time? Like, how did you find the transition?
Actually, it wasn't as bad in some aspects. In terms of like where I saw football, it was home for me. So I was that obsessed with it, and still probably I'm even into this day. But yeah, so I was introduced to football right away. So, my parents introduced me to football right away. So I already felt like at home, and as you know, with kids in particular, when you're talented, talent recognize talent, and people kind of want to be around you, of course. But then obviously there was the language barrier. My English wasn't great, as well as my first language is Portuguese. Angola was colonized by Portugal. A bit of history as well for some people that may not know. Angola was colonized by Portugal, so our main language is actually Portuguese on there. So other than the language barrier, in schools and stuff, I had to kind of, put in the extra shift to learn the language quicker. But I adapted pretty quick. And then I had some Portuguese people around me as well, and Angolan people. So it's easy to kind of, interact in that sense. But, like you said, having gone to Newcastle, there was obviously the racism side of things as well, which I went through. And again, that helped me build sort of my character as well. That was tough. That's one, that's one of the toughest sort of periods in my life. But then again, like you said, the having traveled, the transition from Angola to here, I was already made or prepared for a tough environment regardless. But yeah, it was different, but in some aspects it wasn't too bad. And of course, the cold, that was the main thing. I remember I brought a little jacket thinking that, yeah, that's gonna do. And it was, I think it's probably a summer jacket looking at it now, to be fair. But yeah.
So now, obviously, people see you as a massive inspiration. Obviously, you've done amazing things in football with your lit show and with your career. They don't really know about the cold and the dark times that you went through in your life.
Mhm.
But there will be people that are going through those right now. What would be your message to them? Because obviously you've dealt with them incredibly
Yeah.
well, and then you've used them to become the person that you are today. So, like, what would be your advice to anyone going through maybe challenging moments right now?
Yeah, good question. Good question. So one of the things I've actually never revealed, Jack, is that one of my goals is to become a life coach. And again, long story short, the Lit Show is kind of part of that as well, or will be playing some part of that in the near future. But so this might come as a surprise for some people, or maybe not, because I do get told that a lot. But yeah, so um, I'm quite a deep thinker, and like most of us, overthink, but I always like to analyze and look into things. But to answer your question, what would be, my advice to anyone going through a tough challenge, is that it will pass. So that's for sure. So like just like good moments that we have, bad moments that we have, it all passes. And I have this quote which I created. I'm not sure why. Again, perhaps maybe because of the experience. I always sort of quote to my friends as well. Look, if life itself doesn't last forever, don't expect anything in it to last so, or to do so. So in that case, if you're going through a tough period, it's going to pass. You just got to hang in there. And I know it's easier to say it, but a lot of the times, and I'm sure most of us can agree to this. Most of the times, once you've actually managed to overcome a situation, or you survived, should we say, a situation, all of a sudden, you feel stronger. Is what I said at the beginning. What doesn't kill you make you stronger. So knowing that it's going to pass, it gives you that hope that actually things will be okay. And then, of course, different situations require different methods of coping with yourself or with a situation. But I would say number one, knowing that it's gonna pass, and, you know, just hanging in there. It's going to figure itself out as long as you're hanging in there. Just don't give up.
Mate, I love it. Very inspirational. And by the way, life coach, you should. Hearing you, like, I know you wear the armband, so I was like, I want to ask him questions about being a captain because he's obviously a leader. And then we've been speaking for 20 minutes and you're already talking like a leader. So the world needs you to be a life coach.
Likewise with you as well. That's what I felt like when you were on my show. And in fact, that was part of the reason why I asked you, you know, to come on the show, because I thought, you know, I'm sure people will hear Jack's story and get inspired and motivated by it, and seeing what you do obviously on a day-to-day as well, and just your grind, Jack. And I know a lot of people, you know, who don't know you personally as well, they might look and think, he's just stunting and all that. But I know, coming from someone who's also, you know, on their journey and working to develop themselves, I know how much work, you know, it's being put in. So, you know, again, likewise. So, you know, compliments and congratulations to you as well, mate.
Appreciate you, bro. Big time. So, mate, keep talking about football. I know you had trials at Newcastle.
Yeah.
That experience, how close was you to getting like a pro contract or whatever? Like, talk through that experience of us.
Yeah, good story. I'll talk through that, and then I'll go back to the captain band, because I know I tend to go off topic at times. Again, it's probably because I love talking, like I said. But yeah, so I was playing for a Sunday league team at the time, Red House Farm, and then, you know, at a young age, 13, I can't remember exactly, and then got an opportunity at Newcastle. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to capitalize as much as I wanted to. And then again, for various reasons, when I mentioned the racism side of things, so there was no doubt I was extremely talented, not coming from my own words, but saying what people obviously around me said. And a lot of people obviously believed in that as well. However, I kind of, during my opportunity at Newcastle, I faced a lot of challenges off the pitch as well. So like I was saying, in terms of the racism, so I used to travel to training by myself, as that's something normal to me or to most African people. So, you know, a lot of us, like I said, from 7 years old, I already had a different mindset. So going to football training on my own, it wasn't exactly an issue, which again, difference between the coaches and stuff, just to emphasize that. But yeah, so I would encounter gangs or, you know, sort of like youngsters, perhaps a little bit older than me, who would often chase me, try and jump me, and stuff. I got jumped a few times. Yeah. And funny enough, for some reason, whether it was just football focused or anything like that, I'd still go through the same street because I didn't know any other way. And often I'd go, you know, prepared to fight 5, 6 people at the same time, which resulted in me arriving late, often to training, as well, arriving sort of semi-injured as well. And funny enough, I never opened up about it to the coaches and stuff, you know, so they used to clearly just kind of look at it from a different perspective. So, you know, they're like, hold on, we're kind of giving this guy an opportunity here, and, you know, but he doesn't seem to have a time schedule and all that. And it doesn't help that, you know, the what we call the taboos and all that in terms of like black timing. So I guess they kind of just looked at it that way, but I never spoke out about it. I would just get on with it. So, you know, whether I got jumped or won the fight, or but I was always faster than them, so that helped anyways, regardless. So I might, you know, might defend myself and then run off. But that was the kind of thing I was going through. Whereas obviously other kids who were heading to training would be dropped off by their parents and arrive in good spirit, everything, and everything else to go with it. I would arrive either bruised or injured or semi-injured or worrying and having to kind of like get in the mindset of training or matches. And I remember one game in particular, I think this was probably like one of my last ones. I think it was against Leeds or something, and I arrived injured, and everyone had already done the warm-up and everything, and I had my shirt there waiting for me. At the time, Alan Shearer was like kind of my hero, so I asked if I could wear the shirt number 9 and stuff. So they left that for me, and it was kind of like a big game, put it that way, and it was a game that was perhaps going to decide, a contract, etc. And that day, I was actually jumped and beaten up by like 6, 7 people in there. How I managed to get out of it, I don't know, but I did. And yeah, and when I say beaten up, I was jumped by several guys as I'm saying it, and yeah, but I got there, Jack. I just couldn't. My legs couldn't move. I couldn't do anything, and it was probably one of the worst games I've had. And I think that played a big decision in them. Not to mention one of the days as well, just to go back moments before that, where I went missing for a bit because basically took a different route to the one that I used to take to see. And then what happened, a group of people kind of realized that, and they spread out, split into groups, and then kind of chased me. So I had to kind of like, they realized where I was going, which was obviously the training ground where Newcastle Academy was set up. And yeah, and I had to basically avoid going to the club, had gone somewhere else where I had no clue where it was, but it was in a place called Wallsend. And I basically hid in a place for hours until they disappeared. And you can imagine the chaos. It was time where I can't really even remember if I had a mobile phone at the time or not. Technology, we went into technology like that. But yeah, long story short, parents called police, helicopters looking for me, and the coach kind of like, I can't actually remember who the coach was, but I remember the coaches being really desperate about it as well. And kind of like, but it was a lot of responsibility and a lot of luggage that I was carrying just for football, So I think that kind of also played a role in perhaps me going even further. I was then fortunate to have trials at Port Vale and then Plymouth Argyle as well after that, Southend as well. But, again, there is a story to go with that as well. But yeah, so that's what happened in terms of the football, or the period of the opportunity I was kind of given at Newcastle.
That's insane. How long was you on trial there?
So it was 6 months, and then it got extended. So because at the time they were stuck between, they would sign this guy, or is he going to keep us sort of in trouble, sort of thing, with whatever's going on outside, what it's going. And in the end, I kind of had already given up myself anyways. I'd go to training, and I'm a flashy person from football. I like to kind of show off what I have, my talent. I wouldn't do that. I remember a training session where the guys were doing like, around the world. You play football, so you know what I mean, around the world and stuff. And they all did one each, and then they would pass it to the next person. They gave it to me, and I passed it back, and everyone was like, "Wow, like he really can't do this," and stuff like that. Not knowing I could actually do 6 round the worlds in a row at the time at our age. And it kind of made me think, hold on, something isn't right here. I'm not longer feeling good and feeling at home. And the manager's kind of going, you're supposed to be one of the most skillful here. You don't do a skill. You like kind of, your mind seems to be somewhere else. Yeah, but I never knew that I had to open myself up. Because again, in Africa, which is one of the things I talk about on the podcast with one of the ladies I interviewed recently, you're kind of built to handle everything mentally, just through pure toughness. So speaking to someone about it, it was never the case. It was never in my mind. Obviously today I know different, but yeah. So yeah.
So let's say you've gone through an incident and you've been jumped, you'd get to football after and you wouldn't mention it to the coaches. You'd just be like, "Did you put your socks on and play?"
Of course, yeah. Just get on with it, whether you can run or not. I mean, I was always one of the fastest kids in that time. I couldn't even run, but I kind of played it out to kind of be laziness rather than anything else. But really, I couldn't run.
Did you
But I
tell
didn't.
your like who your parents or?
No, I wouldn't tell my parents either. They didn't know until the very end, until the day that the police came where they were after me, or looking for me, should I say. They found out. But at that point, it had already accumulated all the times that I was obviously there, you know? So yeah, it was yeah. So
Insane.
obviously in school as well, I went through similar incidents as well. I went to quite a big school, and in the end, obviously, I overcame that as well. But it was, yeah, it was a madness.
So this was, I'm guessing, like 15, 16, 17 years ago. Racism then was just
But yeah, was at a different level, like different level. People would, especially up north, like people would openly abuse you. I mean, kind of like, I'm not saying this to kind of, for people to feel sorry for me or anything, but I hope no one else is going through this or anywhere near. But like, there'd be times where I'm walking down the street, and this was, whilst I was already sort of like, a Geordie, I'd be walking down the street, the age of what, 12 or 11 or whatever, and I get punched by like a 20-year-old guy simply because I was black. Like that sort of stuff. Yeah, and I couldn't obviously fight a 20-year-old guy, so I'd run away, but I was struggling to kind of understand. But like I said, I've always been built up or grown up or raised with a tough mentality, which is not, it's not necessarily ideal, but it does help because then, there are consequences to the things that you go through. But I was strong enough to kind of like brush it off my shoulder and get on with it and fighting every day. I was fighting people older than me and all sorts, like
every day.
every day. Yeah, when I was in school, I was fighting pretty much every day, mind you. And then obviously through football again, I became like a popular guy in school, and that kind of eased down a little bit. But in some ways, it worsened because no one kind of wanted me to have the top spot. I was the kind of guy that you would fight for to, and I mean this in the most humble way, but that you'd fight for to have me on your lunchtime team on the lunch break. So I had people fight over that. And of course, if they fighting each other, why wouldn't they fight me? Because at the end, I had to kind of make a choice. We'd play against the oldest, so year sevens or year eights versus year 11s. We'd beat them. I'd kind of, I carry the ball and kind of show off sort of thing. That would result in them trying to catch me after lunch or something. So I was fighting on a daily basis. And the fact that I could actually fight, it didn't help because they would just come after me again and again and again. And they know I wouldn't like sort of I wouldn't give in. So it's kind of like it was a bit of a game, to be honest. But yeah, that's just I'm sure everyone has their stories.
Did it make you think like, why am I here? Do I not want to go back to Angola, or was you always like, nah, this is better. I can just deal with getting punched in the face?
Like to be honest, I was just like I wasn't scared. That's the thing, which is weird, when you're a kid, but I just wasn't scared. Like I've not, there aren't a lot of things that make me scared. Why I wasn't scared, I don't know. It wasn't like I was winning every single fight. I was getting jumped. A lot of the times people knew I could fight, so they would never come in ones or twos. They'd come in threes, four, five, six, and stuff. But for some reason, I just wasn't scared. Maybe it was the fact that I knew I wasn't in the wrong. It was perhaps that mindset, like, look, I've done nothing wrong, like absolutely nothing. Like, I'm just here and this is happening to me. Maybe that's what kind of made me not fear, sort of thing. Yeah.
Wow, bro. Wow. You're tough, hardened, like the grit, resilience is levels, bro, like levels. And I wrote down, I've just put hard. Like you've just been hardened through the experiences in your life. Like, and I've
Yeah.
like so much admiration behind that. Like, and I wrote down underneath it soft culture because I feel like in today's age,
Mm-hmm.
very soft. Like I look at kids, for example, growing up, they're
Yeah.
going through those experiences that you've just mentioned, And as a result, they become, I feel quite soft. Like you mentioned, didn't have a phone. We didn't have phones. We'd go to football on our own or whatever. And we couldn't
Yeah.
make a call and be like, there's someone here to beat me up. Like you just get beat up.
You just get beat up. That's it. Like I
Whereas
knew I was going
nowadays,
to
like,
training.
your
Like,
parents
but
know where you are every minute. They can follow your app or on your phone or whatever. Like it was a different world nowadays. As a result, I feel like
yeah,
people are softer because of it a little bit, and a lot of
yeah,
other reasons. So, what do
of
you
course.
think about that? Obviously, you are a deep thinker. You've got
Hmm.
philosophy. How do you feel like we need to respond? Because I feel like hard times create hard men and
Yeah,
deal with challenges, right? Whereas if it's so soft for people, like what's the future going to look like for them when it comes to they have to work a job against someone who's going to have been through more? They're not going to make the grade, you know what I mean? Or football or whatever. They're not going to make
yeah,
the level that they need to make. It's just winning in life in general.
yeah.
Tell me what you think.
I mean, it's quite a complex one in this case, but from my opinion and personal experience as well, I think your parents do play a big role in there as well. Because, like I said, they've always raised me in a tough way, very obviously very loving and caring, but in a tough way in the sense that, if I wanted to get something and I couldn't, they would make me see why I couldn't have that or why I had to work for it. So a lot of that, again, is built subconsciously within you and then used perhaps, when you're called upon as well. So I think the parents play a huge factor in terms of how their children. But then again, not everyone has parents. So how about those kids who are on their own, for example? But like I said, I think it's just knowing that whatever you're going through, it's going to pass. Good times pass, bad times do as well. And it's about knowing yourself. You kind of like when you know yourself, you kind of become, you're more in control of your life, should you say, you know what sort of environment you want to be in, what you like, what you don't like. And naturally you tend to avoid you know, environments that could potentially harm you or cause you harm in the long term. But a lot of the times, for example, you know, I see a lot of kids who want to dress and act like UK drill rappers, for example, but they don't understand the consequences that come with it. But really what they're looking for is really, some sort of like validation or some sort of praise to make them feel good, to make them feel better. So they're not really building their characters because they're not going according to their experiences. They're going according to someone else's experience, if that makes sense. So there is not a one fit all sort of answer, but the more you know yourself, I believe the more in control you will be of your environment. And like we said, like you said, now there are a lot of kids who are perhaps soft, but those kids are just they're mirroring somebody else rather than looking at themselves in the mirror. You know, because again, social media factors. I look at Jack. Jack's got a six pack and he's dench. I want to be dench and have a six pack, but I don't want to put the work in. I don't know what Jack's done. I don't have the information that Jack does. So I'm going to just do it my own way. Perhaps I go and take a steroid without knowing what the consequences may be. So it's more about knowing yourself and trying to focus on yourself. For those that have parents, obviously the parents have a role to play. For those that don't, perhaps surround themselves with people who make them feel better, etc. Because 9 times out of 10, those people in your life who make you feel better will want better for you anyways. So yeah, that's what I would have to say. But of course, like I said, there's not one answer for everything.
100%. Mate, I could talk to you all night. This is great. Let's close out on it because I know you've probably got plans. I know you've got the armband at the teams you played in previously. You come
Yeah,
across as a leader. Like to you, what does being a leader mean?
yeah, being a leader. Good question. Good question. I think being a leader is being able to um, to look at people's behaviors, feelings, from their perspective, and not only your own perspective, because the sooner you understand something, the quicker you are able to find solutions to it if there is a problem, as well. Because a lot of my leadership, for example, it doesn't necessarily come from shouting and screaming. I don't shout a lot. If anything, I shout more when I'm joking than when I'm actually being serious. So it doesn't come from shouting, swearing, and all of that. But what I do, and even now in the teams that I am, I sort of pull players to the side, and kind of try and understand. Most of the times, I've already understood what's going on, whether it be something off the pitch or on the pitch, and pull them to the side and kind of personalize it to them and say, look, I know you're not scoring at the moment, but look, you can't give up. Your attitude has to be different. You have to manifest in different way. You have to visualize it. You've got to believe you're here for a reason. And it kind of does work. And a lot of the times, that seeing that you've helped someone, it gives you, a sense of reward in a way. But what it does do as well, it expands, because that person then, when there is a problem or something, they'll not only come to you, but suggest somebody else to come to you. And I think, I've always been good in the dressing room. I've always been the person that, again, the vibes. I bring positive vibes. So it's kind of hard for you not to want to be around that person, not to want to listen to that person. So, again, there is no one answer to what's the best way to lead. But again, different scenarios and different people and situations would allow you to lead different. Sometimes you do have to be a little bit tougher on people, because sometimes they need to hear reality and something clicks off. But no, it's been good. Again, obviously leading through experience as well. I'm quite professional, leading by example as well. Again, I only play at semi-pro level, but I treat it as professional. So a lot of the players see that. Some of them banter about it, but I know deep down they all respect it and appreciate it as well. Because I'm there when they need it, and they're there when I need them. So yeah.
So good, bro. So good. And you know what I like most as well? Like, you are now creating that environment, like, the vibes, like positive, like, but you could look back and be like, because you went through such hard times, like,
Yeah.
some people would have a victim mentality because of the experiences that you've had, whereas you've turned that into a victor mentality, and like, how can I
Yeah.
help people around me to win? Like, it's so, I love that. Like, it's so good. So you can turn your pain into power, and I think that's what you've done there, bro.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So, I'm sure you've read a lot of books, you've seen quotes and everything. I can't remember who it was, but somebody I came across an IG reels the other day, which someone said something along the lines of, in this world, you've got to become a monster and control it. Be a controlled monster. And I think that's what most of us need in life, because a lot of the times we don't actually do anything or take action until we're actually hurt or in pain, if you realize. So perhaps, sometimes you do have to have it the hard way, in order for you to do what you need to do and become who you need to become. So, but I've got that mentality. I'd be at training, and I want to, even at this age, I want to be fitter than everybody else. I want to be better than everybody else, but not just that, but I'm willing to work harder than them. I'm willing to go through the pain that they're not going through or not going to go through. And a lot of the times, hard work beats talent. I certainly had that in my experience when I was more talented than people who worked harder than me. So, yeah,
I love it.
definitely.
So I know you've got an amazing philosophy developed through. So I've my journey is a little different. Like, most of my personal development has come through books and mentors and
Mhm.
business, but it hasn't really come. A lot of my wisdom has come through the hard times, which I see in yourself, right? But my
Mhm.
question is, like, is some of your development in your mind coming from books? Are you doing personal development, or is it all from experience in your life?
No, it's a bit of both, actually. Funny enough, I used to. I used to hate books because I just don't like reading them. But what I did do, then I said, well, I know that I need to have access. Well, I need, no, I've got access to books. However, I'm lazy in regards to actually sitting down to reading them. Plus, I'm always finding something else to do other than read a book. So what I decided to do was to actually listen to audiobooks because I'm always listening to music on the go. Plus, I don't have to stop doing anything else. So that's what I've been doing over the last year or so, and I've read more books than what perhaps I could imagine or think of. And certainly, the book has furthered my knowledge or enhanced my knowledge in just looking at life different and applying methods to kind of get you where you want to get, to help you feel better, again, to help you lead better, to understand things better. There are certain things, not everything you listen or read in the book, you're necessarily going to apply now. There are things or information that will be with you for perhaps 20 years' time and all that. But certainly reading books has, or listening to them, should I say, has definitely helped me develop. So apart from obviously my own experience, because through books, it's other people's experiences as well. So again, just expanding that knowledge and bits of information that you kind of need for your journey.
I love it. So I've got two questions for you to close out. What's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book?
Yeah, that you've read. Share your favorite book.
So my favorite book, how, you know what? I would have said a different one had you asked me this 6 months ago, but I would say Atomic Habits, which is just read by James Clear, because I really like that one. Um, I really liked it. I didn't think I would. Like, people had been recommended it for quite some time, but when you saw me post a few times, and I've read it again, and yeah, but I just liked it. It kind of relates to almost everything that I can think of, as well. So I would say that.
I love it. Top man. So the last question, I like to ask most guests this question. So how do you know you're 32?
Yeah.
Amazing. So you walk into Starbucks,
What's going on here?
walk into Starbucks tomorrow morning, and to your right, the 18-year-old you is sat there. Knowing what you know now, what do you say to him? Do you speak to him? Do you leave him to have his coffee? Like, you've got a couple of minutes. What would be your words of wisdom? Because I know a lot of people listen to this are a bit younger. They're looking for some of the nuggets, to the information to change their life. What do you say to him?
Good question. I would probably say utilize your time as best as you can. Time is something that once it's gone, you can't get it back. So, for example, I used my time at uni, obviously to study and stuff, but I wasted a lot of time as well. And time, when I say time, I mean with time, everything begins with time, right? Invest in yourself in terms of, like, the the enthusiasm, the strength, the commitment I have to want to work out and go to the gym. I don't work out. A lot of people think I work out for football. I work out for life, but they don't understand that. They just associate the fact that I play football. So, time to invest in yourself. And again, definitely books, knowledge, something I've avoided for years. So I think to myself, would I have been in a different, perhaps even further in my journey had I invested in books earlier or listened to audiobooks, especially nowadays? And yeah, and just kind of like, be brave, be brave. So that's what I would say to the 18-year-old me. Wish I could go back to that time. Yeah. You've probably never been asked this. Can I reverse that question and ask you back? Or maybe you might have said it already, but I'd like to hear what you would say to the 18-year-old Jack.
You know what? So similar. I would tell him to think bigger much sooner. And I would say, like, the information is there for you to do whatever you want to do. So, like, I know for a fact that I was so programmed to think the way I was thinking because of who I was around. And
Yeah.
only started to change the way I thought, but when I got around different people who had different thoughts around like everything. So I
Right.
was very much like in this matrix of thinking like I've got to go and work a job for the rest of my life, work hard, pay into a pension, and then do one holiday a year. Like that was like because that was all I really knew. So it
Yeah.
wasn't until I got access to different information I was like, whoa, this is different. So like for me, I didn't really get into same as yourself, personal development and like
Yeah.
opening mind to different opportunities until maybe like mid-20s, but 26. That's where my life really changed. So my own
Right.
would be not starting soon. Like I went through university and I spent all 3 years
Yeah.
wasting my time. Like I was gambling. I'd sit in the back of lectures, like not paying any attention at all. I'd be on my phone gambling on like a tennis match in Russia.
Wow.
A student loan would be going on that, and no one would know. Like not even my friends who they wouldn't know because I had such a bad problem with it.
Right.
And I'd just go out and get drunk. I'd rely on my dad for money for my car or whatever. Like I was just wasting so much time. Whereas, and I know that anything is possible for anybody. Like I genuinely
Yeah.
believe. And I was just wasting years of my life, like being a muppet, if you ask me. So like, I'd be thinking, bro, pick up a book, change your life, start building some good habits from atomic habits.
Yeah.
And that's
Wow.
probably what I focus on. It was when I read a book similar to that. It's called The Slight Edge. I don't know if you've read it before.
No, I haven't actually.
Atomic habits, all about habits and things that are easy to do and easy not to do. But if you do them
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
life will change. I read that when I was 25 and I was like, I wish I read this before. And then I started
Oh,
to change. I started to do the things that were easy to do, but
right.
easy not to, like read the 10 pages or listen to an audio rather than listen to Drake.
Yeah.
Or like go and get into a room full of people who think different versus saying, oh no, that'd be crap. Like I'd rather just go and hang around the people I'm comfortable with. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it was little like slide indoors moments that I started to lean into
Uh-huh.
versus resist because it was different. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that's probably
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say think bigger, be bold, and work hard on yourself than you're doing your job.
Impressive. Impressive. Inspirational, Jack. Inspirational. Well, I appreciate you having me, obviously, on the pod. And yeah, really appreciate the time, man.
Where can people find you, mate? What's your IG, Twitter, and stuff?
So I don't actually use Twitter that much. I only use it for football purposes, really. But my IG is official underscore stunner one. And again, this goes just back to the college days and all that. I haven't changed that. But obviously the name is Danilo. But yeah, so same for the lit show for the people that perhaps may want to check it out. I've been recording some stuff. Haven't really posted much on there, but I will be doing so sometime soon. So the show is at lit underscore show 100. So you can find that on Instagram. I use mainly Instagram for in terms of social media and stuff. Yeah.
I love it, bro. And football, where are you playing next season?
Badshot Lee. We just got promoted, so I have been playing for Badshot Lee for what over almost over 5 years or 5 years and a bit now. On there, sort of left last season, came back mid-season, and then yeah, got promoted. So we'll be playing this season at Badshot Lee.
And what league
Yeah.
is
So that's step four football. There's a lot of leagues. So I think it's called the Ismanian league in there. Yeah.
So I was
So
looking at your pre-season games. I'm going to try and come watch when you play down here.
yeah, yeah. I'll give you a shout. I'll give you a shout. I'll have a look. I need to double check. Even like the games like FA Cups and FA Vars, those sort of games. Sometimes it does end up being like more towards your way because you're still in Portsmouth, right?
I am, mate. Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to come
Yeah.
down and watch these skills. I'm hearing all about, it and I'm like, I've got to see this.
No pressure, no pressure, eh? But yeah, no, Jack, I really appreciate it, man. Like, I said sorry, I've had to obviously postpone it a couple of times. I've got a million reasons not to be here, but I thought, you know what, Jack, when I needed you, mate, you were there, for the show, and I'm sure you've got just as a busy life as I do. So, 40 an hour of my time was only doing nothing but kind of thanking you back really for the time you gave me, but I enjoyed it, mate.
Well, mate, you've added a lot of value to it. Whoever's listened to this, so mate, we appreciate you and thanks for coming on.
No, thank you, Jack. Speak to you soon, mate.